Hello, everyone. It's my privilege, my honor to have AJ Kern today, veteran, patriot. AJ Kern is a political figure, very important in our state. She's a tireless truth seeker, and you can find her on her preferred social media. She is on Facebook, of course, where we all need to be, but she's also on TikTok. Look for AJ Kern, and her views have hundreds and thousands of views. AJ Kern, thank you. Can you please give a pitch for what you're researching these days and what you've discovered?
Well, thanks for having me on, Wes. So I want people to know that I actually do have a complaint with the Federal Election Commission. The FEC has assigned my case a number. They've taken it as a matter under review. So it's MUR 8171. And they don't post that on their website until they come to a conclusion and until it comes to an end. And I filed this, I believe it was like mid-September. So it's been a while. And so I'm guessing that Ilhan Omar's attorney must have filed an extension. But according to their timeline, I would say that they should come to a decision within the next 90 days, maybe. So it's a slow process. But I did file, I have a U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services letter that I have on Ilhan Omar's father, that when they completed a thorough search of their records on their database, there's no record of her father naturalizing. And that's important because she claims that she's a citizen through her father. And how that works is that minor children derive citizenship through their parents when that parent applies for naturalization, goes through the entire process, and then when they gain citizenship, then their child can receive a certificate of citizenship. And that's what she claims. You can see that on her website. You can see this letter and my complaint to the FEC on my website, ajkern.com. And it's a little difficult to maneuver, but there's like 3 little horizontal lines on the right of my screen, and that's where you can maneuver and find the FEC complaint. So I received this in June 20th of last year. And then I received from the Department of Homeland Security a certificate of non-existence of record. So after I received the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services letter confirming that her father has no record of naturalizing, I immediately sent to DHS for the certificate of non-existence of record. So they did a more thorough search of their database. And so the thing is that I have this information and no one is interested in it. So I thought, okay, I've tried to call members of Congress. I've called different people or tried to contact different news agencies. Nobody's interested, but these are proof that she cannot be a citizen. And the thing is, at some point, I realized that although we're not allowed to request records of a refugee who's living, you may request records of a refugee who is deceased. And that's what dawned on me one day. It's like, wait a minute, her father has passed away. And so it's like, I can make that request. And it took a year. It took a year for them to respond. And on June 20th, which I think is really a sign from God, I'm taking it that way. June 20th is like National Refugee Day, right?
Yeah.
And it was my wedding anniversary. So I'm like, yes. But you know, that's what she claims on her page, is that she became a citizen at the age of 17 in the year 2000 through her father. But the interesting thing behind that story is that at some point it also dawned on me in 2019 that look at her birth year. She had a 1981 birth year, and I just did a little calculate her age, and she was actually 18 in the year 2000 when her father would have become eligible to apply for citizenship. Well, just a few days after I put that video on social media, she contacted the state and changed her birth year to 1982. So her legislative page, the Minnesota legislative page, now shows 1982. She changed it on Wikipedia. She changed it on the U.S. congressional page to 1982.
How on earth does anyone go about changing their birthday? And have you ever encountered any of the refugees having January 1st birthdays? Does her father have a January 1st birthday? Because he would share that birthday in common with a lot of other refugees, so-called. I mean,
Right. I think that's pretty common knowledge that most of them use January 1st. I'm not really sure what her father's birth year is, and it doesn't, as far as requesting the records, they say you can give an approximate birth year, so it didn't really matter, or birth date. But I had to provide some proof that he was deceased, and what they allowed was that I used a newspaper article, and because I couldn't get any death certificate, you have to have the permission of the family. But the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, they do allow you to use an article from a newspaper, an obituary, and that's what I did. And all of the newspapers have a photo of her with her father when he passed away. So there was no doubt to me that whoever did this search of their records knew exactly who I was looking for. I used all the names that he had used here and in Somalia. And
how many names does he have?
oh, I don't have it in front of me right now, but
Okay.
there were several. He used a different name in Somalia, but I have them all on paperwork, and I can't really recall right now. I don't have it in front of me.
Well, that's okay, because there's usually, with Arabic names, there's usually several family names. There's several permutations of the name, even if it varies from Abdulaziz to just Abdul. So there
Actually,
could be,
let me see. I have Mohammed Nur Omar Mohammed, and then there's Nur Omar Saeed Elmi Mohammed. I think those were the names that he used. I forgot I had it right here on this paper right here.
and several of those names, so the name Muhammad can be a first name, so to speak, and a last name, and it can be a middle name also. So those different, and Nasser or Al Muhammad, those names can all be sort of interchangeably used. But then in the end, it was a death. It was an article about his passing that served to open the door into asking about his immigration status with the Department of Homeland Security, and then they returned a statement of having no record. Was it the Department of Homeland Security that said they have no records on him?
Yes, the Department of Homeland Security, that's the agency that provided the certificate of non-existence of record, and they say that
Wow.
that their agency performed a search for records relating to the subject identified below. Specifically, this office search Central Index System, CIS, and/or microfilm digitization application system. And then the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is the agency that you apply to for naturalization and they maintain those records, they said that unfortunately we found no matching index reference. Our search included all variations of subject's name, including Nur Saeed Elmi Mohammed, with the same results. And so
So,
they said that they searched their database and they found nothing.
so no records means they have absolutely. I mean, just to clarify for me, because this is an actual question. Having no records on this subject means they don't know anything about him. I mean,
Right.
it's astonishing. So her immigration status to the United States depends upon an individual about whom there exists no actual information. It, it
Well, just that he did not naturalize. It doesn't mean that the government doesn't have any records on him or know who he was, but it's just that there are no naturalization records for him. He never naturalized.
therefore,
And what you and I know, Wes, is that in Minnesota, it's one of
yeah,
those states run by the leftists, and they, I mean, the refugees and the illegals, they know that they do not need to become citizens to vote. And you can see my other video. You know that I went to the Minnesota Secretary of State's office and I wanted to verify that they had verified that Ilhan Omar was a citizen. And I left that office with the information that they said that we don't verify the citizenship because there is no law requiring them to do so. And the clerk said in the video that, in fact, if they required proof of citizenship of the foreign-born, they would in fact be in violation of the law because there is no law. Which is, it's a circular kind of thing, but they're saying that we cannot request verification of citizenship of the foreign-born when they come into the Secretary of State's office to register to vote or run for federal office because there's no law, state law, requiring them to do so. So that's how they're getting around this and allowing all these illegals flooding in to certain states ran by the leftist Democrats that are going to register them to vote. And no one is really covering that story. I don't know why no one else has taken the initiative to do what I did and just start going to your local Department of Motor Vehicles office. And when you see all the illegals sitting there and they're speaking Spanish, why don't you ask them, are you verifying their citizenship when they register to vote?
hmm.
You can record it. It's a public office. Record it, and they'll have to tell you the truth.
Is Ilhan Omar at this point above reproach on these issues because she's been in there for all these years? Is it kind of a fait accompli that through her example, Minnesota is showing the rest of the world that Minnesota is a light touch and that federal laws don't apply in Minnesota, that state law of Minnesota supersedes federal law? I mean, how could it be you could run for office without proving that you're a citizen of the United States? It's really not required. But now we've seen that Ilhan Omar has no citizenship status, but she still sits in the U.S. Congress. I'm a little bit, it's too much. And, it makes me worry about our state and what it makes me concerned for the future that if this is the precedent we're setting, what are we going to see when the cartels really start blasting people into Minnesota and the cartels, just parachute these people in? We're not going to have any way. I mean, the rule of law is kind of upside down at that point. There's no end.
Right. It's interesting you're talking about federal law versus state law, where it seems that for registering the foreign-born to vote that are non-citizens, the state seems to have taken that over, and the federal government is allowing them to do that, right? But then you look at the border, and it's the opposite kind of argument that the states are not now, they're not allowed, like Texas is not allowed to defend its borders. And the federal law is saying, you can't keep the foreigners out. And yet, uh, the taxpayers are having to carry that burden in every way, our schools, hospitals, crime, all of this. And it's all because the Democrat Party has betrayed the people. And I think a lot of people who have traditionally voted Democrat are not going to vote Democrat next time. At the same time, the Republicans are just about as guilty. It's like Tom Emmer partnered with Keith Ellison to allow the Somali remittances to get going again. They worked hard to achieve that because under Obama, he had stopped remittances so that the Somali refugees were not allowed to send money back to Somalia. Tom Emmer, with Keith Ellison of all people, worked together and got the Somali remittances going again. And now you have suitcases of millions of dollars in cash going to Somalia. You can't track it. Some of that absolutely has to be going to Al-Shabaab. And yet, Tom Emmer, as a Republican, isn't answering for it. And now that Ilhan Omar seems to be losing her mind, I think, in that this new video that's come out. I don't know if what she said has been thoroughly verified, but it sounds like she's sounding off like a Somali nationalist, which is what she is.
Yes.
And now Tom Emmer's stepping up and well, she needs to step down or whatever. Well, the Republicans pound their chest and emit a lot of hot air and they do nothing, right? And why at this point, why aren't the Minnesota GOP getting together and working on Capitol Hill and saying, we got to get rid of this woman. She's a Somali nationalist. This has to be done. We've got to take it to the House Ethics Committee.
Right.
And no, he'll just beat his chest, and some of the Republicans will go, yay, and then nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen. That's right. Tom Emmer he'll say it for a few headlines. And there was a political meeting this morning in Rochester here. And it was mentioned, Tom Emmer, he's going to do the right thing. And I just looked at the people saying that, like, let's wait and see. He could easily make a complaint against Ilhan Omar in the ethics committee. Let's wait and see if he really does that. But otherwise, he's just doing it for headlines. And it's all understood. You do that for headlines and then you walk away or you backtrack it later on. And for a certain segment of your constituency, you look like a tough guy for a while, but you walk away from it. And this video, and we were saying we want to do the responsible thing because neither of us have vetted this video or seen an actual verification of the translation of Ilhan Omar's speech. Other people, anyone can search for this video right now. I encourage you to discover your own original source material on the video circulating of Ilhan Omar speaking as a Somali nationalist. And I'm not going to characterize the things she's saying about the United States and about her mission here because we need to have the translation verified. It's also something that the House Republicans should call for. The House Republicans should call for an official translation of Ilhan Omar's speech in a foreign language. If she's saying things that we've been told she's saying, then she should be removed post haste. But we also know at the same time, and I'm sorry for co-opting so much time here, but I do remember when Ilhan Omar was working through activists and capable of creating a false flag event at her headquarters in Minneapolis. So she's not above being able to, her followers will create a situation that will draw people in to be bamboozled and, fly trapped into something. So we want to stay away from that, but she ought to have to explain, even in English, tell us what you were saying, Ilhan. But this video circulating and there's translation available below her video. I don't speak Somali, but I have some people who could translate that. But there again, they are not verified or licensed translators. So
I think at some point it will be verified, um, for sure. It, we'll find out exactly what her words were. Um, but nevertheless, I think she has said enough um, to show where her allegiance is. And I also wanted your viewers to also know that I did submit to the Hennepin County Attorney's Office a notarized voter fraud complaint against her, and they have never contacted me. I'm sure that Keith Ellison probably he probably just tossed it in the trash, but it did have to be notarized, and every person does have a right to submit that by taking my two documents and doing that. And I've asked for any Minnesota GOP person to do it, and they haven't, because I wanted the state attorney general to take it more seriously, because they would with the state legislators, but the state legislators of the Minnesota GOP will do nothing. And also because Tom Emmer and Fishbach and all of them are doing nothing in Congress, I've also submitted to the Office of Congressional Ethics, and they could be going to the U.S. House Ethics Committee and doing something. And so the voters in Minnesota need to know that their Republican Party, uh, they really aren't fighting for you, and the Congress has really become a joke. They've abdicated their responsibilities, and we are literally being invaded. And we've imported so many refugees who they do not have allegiance to this country. And we have to start speaking truth about it and stop worrying about what other people are going to think or say about us or accuse us of. We have to speak up because we are losing our country, and we may be already too far down the rabbit hole, but
yeah.
I fully believe that with the people that we are allowing in, uh, that we are going to have our day, that all hell is going to break loose.
You bring up a topic that is much discussed in political circles. Here in Rochester, again, at this meeting we had this morning, many people gathered to share their concerns about the southern border. Are you following the constitutional crisis, which is ongoing and developing between the governor of the state of Texas, and then also the attorney general of the state of Texas, and the Biden administration in Washington? Are you tracking that a little bit? And do you have anything to say about that? If you don't want to comment on it, I would understand. But
I'm, like everyone else, I'm paying attention to it, and I believe that there's enough evidence that the Biden administration they're giving aid to the enemy. We definitely have an enemy invading our country, and I believe that's treason. And it's just amazing that they can throw everything they want at President Trump. That's false, and do what they're doing to him. It's really disgusting. We have turned into a banana republic, and we've got the cartel operating in our country now. And
yeah,
we know this is about votes, but I think that the states that the Republican states, those governors, should be sending their National Guard to the southern border in the states that will have them, like Texas. And I think citizens need, at some point, the citizens are going to, something's going to happen. Something's going to trigger, something's going to happen. And the citizens are going to take up arms and probably go to the southern border and have to stop it themselves because life has become too comfortable and we're not saving our republic, our constitutional republic for our children. We're completely falling and the church leadership is falling. And until some brave individuals speak up and stand up and the people stop voting for the Democrats and the Republicans that are betraying us, we're just going to keep sliding down the hill.
And we're not in this conversation. Neither of us is neither of us is advocating for some sort of action. Others can do what they're going to do. We're just describing. It's a descriptive presentation of cause and effect. None of us are, we have our discipline and we're not popping off. But it seems to be that, the Biden administration just keeps poking Bubba and hoping that Bubba does something, right? Like you poke the Russian bear. But you can't, it's a situation that's untenable. And they just keep flooding the border. I mean, they've had 10 to 14 million people crossing the southern border into the United States of America. If you or I go to an airport to fly to another city in the United States, we will be subjected to pat downs and we got to take our shoes off and we have to present our documents to board the plane, to board the flight. It's a complete misapplication of security measures. So it is the federal government's responsibility to protect the United States of America. So if there's blame to be cast, it's on the Biden side, in their direction. So
absolutely, yep, I agree with everything that you said, and I'm not advocating for any violence, but we do have our Constitution, and it was written in the way that it was because our founders knew that one day tyranny would raise its ugly head again, and that's where we're at.
That's right. AJ Kern, we have a right to defend. And AJ Kern, your preferred social media, will post it all in the comments below this excellent talk we've had today. I feel so privileged to have had this conversation with you. And AJ Kern you can find her on TikTok, incredibly. As I say, I don't even go near that place, but that's a great place to be because that's how I found out about your work right now on Ilhan Omar. So AJ Kern is on TikTok. AJ Kern is on Facebook, and join her.
And X, yes? Twitter.
Yes,
we might call it
X. And some of us are still calling it Twitter, incredibly, but yeah. X, AJ Kern is on X, and AJ Kern, you can find her at ajkern.com. So yes, look at the documents.
Yes.
Thank you, AJ. And let's talk sooner than later. When I called you today, I realized it'd been over a year since we last had one of these conversations. Let's try to do it sooner than later. Okay,
sounds good.
Thank you, AJ. Keep up the good work.
God bless.
God bless. Thank you.